Isabella Harper moved through the grand halls of her penthouse with a practiced grace, her hand lightly grazing the polished marble surfaces as if testing the cold perfection of her surroundings. The Harper residence was the epitome of luxury, floor-to-ceiling windows that showcased the glittering city skyline, crystal chandeliers that scattered prisms of light across the opulent furniture, and walls adorned with priceless artwork collected from decades of Ethan Harper's global ventures. Guests often whispered about how flawless their life appeared, how enviable the harmony between Isabella and her husband seemed. Yet behind the warm smiles and polite laughter, Isabella felt a gnawing emptiness. She was 5 months pregnant with their first child, and the joy she had once felt was now clouded by a persistent tension that clung to her like a shadow. Ethan Harper, her husband, was a figure of admiration and subtle intimidation. Tall, impeccably dressed, and charming with an effortless smile, he commanded attention wherever he went. Yet lately, he seemed distant. His late-night calls and hurried departures from their gatherings had grown frequent, and though he reassured her with practiced affection, Isabella's intuition whispered that he was hiding something. She noticed the small things, a flicker of unease in his eyes, a delayed response to her words, a restless tapping of his fingers during conversations. These small cracks in his facade unsettled her more than any open argument ever could. As the city lights glimmered beyond the glass, Isabella's gaze lingered on her reflection in a mirror framed by golden filigree. She saw a woman who had built her life around love and trust, yet she couldn't shake the sense that the foundation was already trembling. Despite the parties, the admiration, and the material perfection surrounding her, Isabella felt increasingly isolated. Her observation sharpened, her mind catalogued inconsistencies in Ethan's behavior with quiet intensity. The perfect life she outwardly embodied was merely a fragile illusion, one that seemed ready to shatter at the slightest pressure. Bella had begun noticing patterns in Ethan's behavior that gnawed at her sense of security. It started with subtle things, the way he would excuse himself from conversations at gatherings, often glancing at his phone with an intensity that suggested secrecy. Late-night texts, sent and deleted before she could see them, had become routine. She even caught snippets of his hushed phone conversations, his tone dropping to a low, almost conspiratorial whisper when he thought no one was listening. Then there were the unexplained meetings, appointments he never mentioned, dinners that seemed important but never included her. The details were small, almost imperceptible to the casual observer, but Bella's intuition sharpened with every instance. A sense of unease settled in her chest, like a warning bell she couldn't ignore. Despite her growing suspicions, Bella kept up appearances with their friends. She smiled, laughed, and complimented Ethan in public, concealing the turmoil simmering beneath the surface. She was careful, knowing that confronting him too soon might cause an irreparable rift before she had a clear understanding of the situation. Instead, she began to gather subtle clues, mentally noting inconsistencies in his stories, the sudden change in his routines, and the hints of another presence in their lives. Bella questioned herself constantly, unsure if she was overreacting, if the unease she felt was merely a projection of her anxieties as a soon-to-be mother. Yet, a small, stubborn voice in her mind refused to dismiss the signs. Something was amiss, and she had to be vigilant. The moment of truth arrived on an ordinary Thursday evening. Bella returned home earlier than expected, carrying groceries and humming softly to herself. The apartment was silent at first, the familiar hum of city life filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows. She placed the bags in the kitchen and moved toward the bedroom, a vague sense of anticipation prickling her skin. As she opened the door, time seemed to freeze. There, in her marital bed, was Vanessa Cruz, draped across the sheets as if she owned the place. Ethan, caught mid-motion, froze, his face draining of color. Shock coursed through Bella's body, followed swiftly by a storm of betrayal, fear for her unborn child, and a cold, simmering anger. Ethan tried to speak, stammering apologies that sounded hollow even to him. Bella's mind, however, worked with icy clarity. She did not scream, did not lash out. Instead, she observed every detail, the look in Vanessa's eyes, Ethan's panic, the room that had become the stage for her worst fears. The weight of her realization pressed on her chest, but she remained composed. Memories of their life together, both the happy and the subtle betrayals, flashed through her mind. She understood, with terrifying clarity, that this moment would define everything to come. Vanessa, realizing the gravity of the situation, scrambled to cover herself, but Bella's eyes never wavered. She studied their faces, their movements, and the environment that had once felt safe. Every detail was catalogued, a mental blueprint for what would come next. She recognized the danger, but she also recognized the power she still held: foresight, intelligence, and calm under pressure. In that instant, Bella made a silent, irrevocable decision. She would leave, not in a fit of rage, not in immediate confrontation, but with meticulous planning and calculated precision. The control was hers to reclaim. No shouting, no fighting, no impulsive actions would jeopardize her safety or that of her unborn child. She turned slowly, her expression calm, her mind already orchestrating the steps she would take to disappear, leaving Ethan and Vanessa to face the consequences of their recklessness. Bella sat at the grand mahogany desk in their bedroom, her fingers tracing the edges of the documents she had been gathering for weeks. Every detail of Ethan's movements, his schedules, and his predictable patterns had been recorded mentally and on encrypted notes she hid from prying eyes. She knew exactly when he would leave the house, how long he would be gone, and which routes he would take. The knowledge gave her a quiet, strategic confidence. She packed a small suitcase with essentials, clothing, toiletries, and money tucked into hidden compartments. Her laptop, encrypted and brimming with files, went into a separate bag. Carefully, she prepared the USB drive. On it were cryptic files pointing to Ethan's betrayal, his secret communications with Vanessa, and hints at questionable business dealings that he had kept hidden. Each file was deliberately coded to make him panic, yet reveal enough that he would understand the magnitude of his exposure. Bella wanted him to feel the weight of his choices, but she also needed a buffer, a way to protect herself without direct confrontation. Her mind raced with thoughts of her unborn child. She imagined scenarios where Ethan might attempt to track her, or Vanessa might retaliate. Fear fluttered in her chest, but it was always accompanied by determination. Every precaution she took was for the child and for her own survival. She disabled security cameras in the apartment using pre-planned overrides and left false digital footprints, ensuring any investigation would hit dead ends. Finally, she left a note for Ethan, deceptively casual, and placed the USB drive conspicuously on the kitchen counter. Her heart pounded as she stepped out into the night, blending into the anonymity of the city. Each step was measured, calculated, and deliberate. Bella knew that once she vanished, the real game would begin, not of revenge, but of survival, foresight, and reclaiming control over the life that Ethan had almost destroyed. Ethan returned home hours later, expecting the usual warmth of his wife's presence. Instead, he found the apartment eerily silent. His eyes immediately caught the USB drive resting innocently on the kitchen counter. Confused, he picked it up, turning it over in his hands. A sinking feeling settled in his stomach as he realized Bella was gone. With trembling fingers, he inserted the USB into his laptop. The screen lit up with files he immediately recognized as damning, video clips of intimate encounters with Vanessa, messages he thought were deleted forever, and documents that suggested financial misdeeds he had hidden from partners and regulators alike. The breadth of evidence was staggering. Bella had anticipated every step, every lie he had told, every betrayal he had thought was safely concealed. Panic clawed at him, replacing the confidence he usually exuded. He frantically searched for clues about her whereabouts, opening documents that contained coded messages, each pointing to her clever foresight. Every step he took seemed to meet a wall of misdirection. Bella had left no trace for him to follow, no phone numbers, no email accounts, no obvious destinations. The realization hit him: she had planned this meticulously, foreseeing his panic and using it against him. As hours passed, Ethan's attempts to trace her movements became increasingly desperate. Private investigators, GPS trackers, and even digital forensics yielded nothing. The USB drive had become both a weapon and a message. Bella's intelligence and composure were clear in every encrypted file, every deliberate misdirection. He understood, painfully, that he had lost control entirely. While Ethan spiraled into frustration and fear, Bella remained hidden, watching from a distance as the initial shock took hold. The tables had turned. She was no longer the vulnerable wife, she was the orchestrator, the one who dictated the pace of events, and the one who held the power to determine when, and if, Ethan would ever see her again. Ethan, desperate to locate Bella, contacted Detective Marcus Lane, a man known for his relentless pursuit of leads and impeccable intuition. Marcus approached the case with methodical precision, reviewing Bella's routines, interviewing friends, and scanning social media for any hint of her presence. Yet with every lead, it became apparent that Bella had anticipated their moves. She had meticulously planted false digital footprints, social media accounts with misleading check-ins, encrypted emails sent from public Wi-Fi networks far from her actual location, and even fake rental agreements showing her presence in cities she had never visited. Physical clues, too, were deceptive. She left objects in specific locations to suggest certain movements, only to mislead trackers into following false paths. Marcus grew frustrated but remained professional. He studied patterns, connected dots, and pursued every angle, yet Bella's foresight consistently outmaneuvered him. Every near discovery, a suspicious passerby reporting a sighting, a car spotted in a remote town, ended up being a carefully orchestrated illusion. Even Ethan's attempts to monitor her communications were thwarted. Bella had altered devices, deleted histories, and used secure encrypted channels to communicate indirectly through anonymous allies. The suspense built with each day. Marcus experienced fleeting moments of hope when a lead seemed promising, only to watch it dissolve into nothing. The tension was palpable. Every misstep, every false trail kept Ethan and Marcus on edge, desperate to regain control. Bella remained a step ahead, blending invisibly into her surroundings while watching her husband unravel from a distance. From her secluded location, Bella felt a sense of quiet determination. She had rented a small, remote apartment far from prying eyes, deliberately chosen for its anonymity and lack of surveillance. Disguised when venturing outside, hoods, sunglasses, and subtle makeup, she moved cautiously, ensuring that no one could recognize her. Every step she took was calculated, minimizing risks while maximizing safety for herself and her unborn child. She monitored Ethan's actions through secure, encrypted channels, piecing together his frantic attempts to locate her. Watching him unravel brought a bittersweet satisfaction, tempered by lingering sorrow for the betrayal she had endured. Yet, amid the tension, Bella felt a growing independence that thrilled her. For the first time in years, she was acting entirely on her own terms, free from manipulation or fear of domestic confrontation. Her thoughts often turned to Sophie Reed, her closest confidant, who aided her discreetly. Sophie sent anonymous tips, arranged temporary accommodations, and provided emotional support from afar. Bella cherished the network of quiet allies she had cultivated, realizing that intelligence alone was not enough. Careful planning and selective trust were equally vital. The betrayal she had experienced left deep emotional scars, but it also sharpened her instincts. She cataloged every memory, every hint of Ethan's deception, using them as lessons in foresight and self-preservation. Each day of hiding was both a challenge and a proving ground, forcing her to rely on her wit, emotional intelligence, and strategic thinking. Amid this vigilance, Bella reflected on the life she had once envisioned, a loving partner, a safe home, and a family that flourished. That vision had been shattered, but in its place was a new reality, one where she was in control, one step ahead of those who had wronged her. Her protective instincts for her unborn child amplified her resolve. Survival was no longer just about herself. Bella's mind was sharp, her heart resilient, and her determination unwavering as she prepared for the next phase of her carefully orchestrated journey. Bella's life in hiding was a delicate dance, and the tension of near discovery kept her senses sharp. Several times, Ethan and Detective Marcus Lane came agonizingly close to finding her. One afternoon, a delivery driver, unknowingly part of Ethan's surveillance, almost spotted her leaving her apartment in disguise. Bella had anticipated the encounter, ducking into a side alley and waiting until the coast was clear before continuing her route. Another instance involved a hidden camera Marcus had placed in a nearby park, one of the few locations Bella occasionally visited. She noticed its presence immediately, having mapped out potential surveillance blind spots in advance. With quick thinking, she rerouted, crouched behind foliage, and ensured she remained invisible to the lens. Each close call was a reminder of the stakes she faced, the danger not only to her freedom but to the unborn child she carried. Mistaken identities added to the suspense. A passerby resembling Bella's build and hairstyle was briefly followed by Marcus and a private investigator, wasting hours chasing a phantom. Bella observed this from her safe distance, heart racing but mind calm, appreciating the irony of her clever planning. Each narrowly avoided confrontation reinforced her control over the situation. Despite the fear that occasionally gripped her chest, Bella's meticulous preparation and quick thinking kept her steps one step ahead of discovery. Every escape, every diversion, heightened the suspense, building the sense that one false move could unravel her carefully orchestrated plan. The tension was palpable, but her intelligence and foresight remained her shield against the relentless pursuit of those who sought to find her. After weeks of hiding and watching Ethan's frantic attempts to track her, Bella knew it was time to escalate. She enlisted Sophie Reed to anonymously leak parts of the USB drive online, ensuring that Ethan would feel the consequences of his betrayal without ever seeing her. The files were released strategically, videos of his affair with Vanessa, incriminating messages, and hints at financial misconduct carefully curated to provoke maximum impact. Within hours, social media erupted. Followers, colleagues, and strangers alike shared the scandalous content, dissecting every detail. News outlets picked up the story, amplifying the outrage. Ethan's once untouchable reputation began to crumble. His friends and business partners watched in disbelief as the man they admired for charm and success was exposed for deception and moral failure. Vanessa's involvement quickly became public, fueling gossip and scandal, and forcing her to face scrutiny and consequences she had never anticipated. From her secure location, Bella observed the fallout with a mixture of satisfaction and restraint. She did not gloat openly, instead, she allowed the chaos to unfold naturally, knowing that her absence amplified Ethan's sense of helplessness. Every post, every viral clip, every shocked reaction was a testament to her foresight and control. The power she once lacked in her marriage had shifted entirely into her hands. As Ethan scrambled to contain the damage, attempting to delete content and appease the media, Bella remained invisible and untouchable. The tables had turned completely. She had orchestrated the scenario from behind the scenes, manipulating events with precision. Her clever planning, strategic patience, and understanding of human behavior ensured that Ethan felt the full weight of his actions while she remained safely out of reach, her safety and that of her unborn child uncompromised. As Bella continued observing from the shadows, she began to uncover layers of Ethan's life she had never imagined. The USB drive had been only the beginning. Hidden within his encrypted files and financial statements were evidence of multiple betrayals, both personal and professional. Emails revealed liaisons with other women, contracts manipulated for his gain, and secret offshore accounts that suggested financial misconduct. Each new discovery sent a surge of vindication through her, tempered by the realization of how deeply Ethan had deceived her. More shocking were the alliances that began to surface. Vanessa, once merely a lover, appeared to be entwined with certain business rivals, forming covert schemes that threatened Ethan's empire. Documents hinted at backroom deals and secret meetings, implying that his closest associates might have been complicit in ethical breaches he had concealed for years. Bella's meticulous observation and analysis allowed her to connect these dots, turning every hidden pattern into a source of leverage. The twists did not end there. Evidence suggested that Vanessa had intentionally escalated the betrayal, seeking to undermine Bella's security and potentially claim a stake in Ethan's wealth. Yet, even as these revelations unfolded, Bella's calmness never wavered. She navigated this web of deceit with the same precision she had applied to her disappearance, weighing every potential move and calculating the consequences. Each revelation bolstered her position. The realization that Ethan's empire, carefully built on charm and manipulation, had vulnerabilities she could exploit filled her with a quiet satisfaction. Bella's intelligence, emotional resilience, and foresight transformed her from a victim into a strategist. She understood the stakes fully, recognizing that every twist provided her with opportunities to reclaim control, protect her unborn child, and dismantle the carefully constructed illusions of her husband's life. The power dynamics had shifted entirely, and Bella's dominance was no longer latent, it was imminent and unassailable. Bella orchestrated her confrontation with Ethan not through words or physical presence, but through calculated, indirect actions. She sent incriminating evidence from the USB drive to his closest colleagues, ensuring they were fully aware of his betrayals and financial misdeeds. Carefully timed messages appeared on social media, hinting at the depth of his indiscretions while maintaining Bella's anonymity. Influential figures in Ethan's business and social circles received discreet, detailed correspondence that left no doubt about the extent of his deception. Ethan, caught in the tide of mounting humiliation, began to understand the brilliance of Bella's strategy. He had spent weeks searching for her, only to realize that she had not only vanished but had also positioned herself in complete control of the narrative. His attempts to contain the damage only amplified the exposure, leaving him vulnerable both publicly and privately. Every colleague who questioned him, every business contact who withdrew support, served as a stark reminder of the intelligence and foresight Bella had wielded. From her hidden vantage point, Bella watched the unraveling with measured satisfaction. She did not gloat or make her presence known, the elegance of her dominance lay in its subtlety. Ethan's distress, compounded by the public revelations and the impossibility of locating her, was proof of her control. The confrontation was psychological, a chess match in which she had always anticipated every move. Her calm demeanor and careful planning transformed betrayal into empowerment, leaving Ethan to grapple with the consequences of his actions while she remained untouchable, unflustered, and in complete command of the situation. After weeks of careful planning, evasion, and observation, Bella finally allowed herself a moment of relief. She had secured a safe location far from Ethan's reach and ensured that her unborn child's safety was never in jeopardy. The constant fear that had shadowed every decision slowly began to ease, replaced by a cautious optimism. Sitting in her quiet apartment, she reflected on the events that had led her here, the betrayal that had cut so deeply, the clever manipulation that had saved her, and the foresight that had allowed her to reclaim control. Bella contemplated the nature of trust and betrayal, understanding now more clearly how fragile relationships could be when honesty was absent. The realization that her resilience had carried her through the darkest moments gave her a sense of strength she hadn't fully appreciated before. Each obstacle she had overcome reinforced her confidence, not only in her intelligence but in her ability to protect and nurture her child. Emotional healing began in small, steady increments. She allowed herself to grieve the life she had once envisioned with Ethan while simultaneously celebrating the independence she had gained. She felt empowered by the knowledge that she had outmaneuvered those who had sought to undermine her and that her life was now firmly in her own hands. Bella's reflections were tinged with satisfaction and a quiet sense of justice. Her foresight had turned a devastating betrayal into an opportunity for self-reclamation. In the stillness of her safe haven, she felt a deep, renewed connection to herself and the future she would create for her child, ready to embrace life on her own terms. Years later, Bella Harper had transformed her life into one of security, peace, and fulfillment. The secluded apartment had given way to a charming, sunlit home where she lived with her child, free from fear and betrayal. Every corner reflected her personal taste and her careful attention to detail, a testament to the independence she had cultivated. She had built a life centered on her own values, blending motherhood with a renewed sense of purpose and autonomy. Ethan's life, by contrast, had fallen into chaos. Public humiliation, the collapse of his carefully curated reputation, and the exposure of his multiple betrayals had left him isolated and discredited. Vanessa faced her own repercussions, both socially and professionally, as the network of consequences Bella had unleashed continued to ripple outward. Both had underestimated Bella's intelligence and resilience, learning too late the cost of their selfish actions. For Bella, life was no longer about revenge, it was about empowerment and growth. She had reclaimed every ounce of control that had been taken from her and established boundaries that protected her and her child. Her independence shone in every decision, from her career choices to her daily routines, reflecting a woman who had faced adversity and emerged not just unbroken, but stronger. Subtle hints suggested the possibility of new love or companionship on her own terms, yet Bella remained content even in solitude. She had discovered that her strength, foresight, and resilience were sufficient for happiness, and that freedom was the ultimate victory. As she watched her child play in the sunlit living room, she felt a profound sense of justice and fulfillment. The life she had envisioned, once fractured by betrayal, had been reclaimed and reshaped into a story of triumph, empowerment, and enduring hope.